There was a time earlier in my career where like Canada was the place money wanted to go because they could see the resource. It was a sure production. There's no finding costs. It was this long rectangle of production. So it's very appealing to an investor to look at Canada. And so getting that money back and interested in the country is really important.
That was the CEO of TMX. Canada used to be the wild, wild west in terms of oil and gas development. Money used to flood into this country. That's why Canadians had one of the best standards of living in the world. Everybody respected Canada. People wanted to come to Canada or aspired to become Canadian. How things have changed in only 10 years. The Liberals' attack on the oil and gas industry seen money vanish. Canadian standard of living has evaporated. The once respected country around the world is gone. I believe I have figured out why Donald Trump wanted Mark Carney and the Liberals to win the election. And it has everything to do with oil and gas. We're going to cover this in this report. Also, if you missed my report yesterday, Canada's mass exodus of money leaving this country and how it affects you should definitely check it out. Plus, in today's report, the economy is imploding right now and the US economy is exploding in growth. Pierre Poilievre 2.0 is on fire right now. The best decision the Conservatives have ever made was to fire the campaign manager. Conservatives are so back. We have lots to discuss in today's report. Let's get into the show. We're going to start this show off with the economy. Then I'm going to discuss with you why Donald Trump wanted the Liberals to win. I think I know why. And we're going to end with Pierre Poilievre 2.0 is on fire right now. The breaking news story today is that the Canadian economy is contracting while the US economy is soaring. Elbows up was a terrible idea, and today we find out why. As James Throne describes on his X account, big miss in Canada's GDP, an economy with a downward momentum rapidly accelerating. Yes, a hard landing in Canada, a super hard landing, because not only is our economy contracting, but based on the report that I did yesterday, the money is also flooding out of Canada. The Bank of Canada is late. Are we surprised? They're never early. They are reactionary. They never move ahead of the curve. Why our overnight rate is not significantly below 2% is beyond me. Tiff Macklin is this cycle reincarnation of John Crow. And here's the summary of Bloomberg report. Canada's economy shrinks at 1.6%, not 0.5, not 1.6% as trade war crushes exports. Canada's gross domestic product shrank at a 1.6 annualized pace for the second quarter, the biggest decline since pandemic and the first contraction in nearly 2 years. Nearly 2 years, Canada. Exports fell 27% on an annualized basis as U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods shattered the country's shipments abroad, while business investment contracts 10%. The data shows that some evidence that the trade damage isn't rapidly creeping through the broader economy, with final domestic demand rising 3.5% in the second quarter, driven by a 4.5% increase in household consumption. But what people don't understand on the last part is we're dealing with inflation at the same time. And I'm going to quickly describe this bottom part right here. It's saying that there's evidence that the damage is not rapidly creeping into the broader economy. Like, people are still buying things. The thing is people still need shelter, food, electricity, all of the basics. Of course, we have to spend money on this. This part right here should show how much in debt Canadians are. Canada is number 1 in household debt to disposable income in the world. Look how we are compared to the United States. And we have the food professor on X saying Q2 GDP growth negative 1.6, experts choked by US tariffs, and Q2 GDP for the US is 3.3%. Big rebound on strong demand. But hey, Canadians feel stronger. Maybe we should start measuring GDP in vibes instead of dollars. Check out my response. And the food professor actually reposted my response. Good thing we have an economic genius running our country. Oh wait, he's in Ukraine saying Ukraine's fight is our fight, funded by a completely broken economy. I think it would be a great idea to check out Mark Carney's social media account, given that we got the most devastating economic report in over 2 years. What does he have to say for himself? Let's just move down to yesterday. So this is his post yesterday. What did he do today? He has this French communication, so it must be this one. 2 hours ago, we're moving at a pace not seen in generations to build ports, railways, energy grids, the major projects that will unlock Canada's full economic potential and build Canada strong. Let's take a look at this news release. I've read Mark Carney's statement, so let's just go through it quickly. He's launching a new major projects office. Are you kidding me? Because when you launch a new project office, that's more bureaucracy, meaning it's going to delay everything. Also, what he's done is this new office is going to be able to identify projects of national interest and will fast track their developments. Wonderful. And Mark Carney also announced Don Farrell will be the new Chief Executive Officer of the Major Projects Office. The next paragraph is First Nations will be number one, and they will be in charge of approving and saying yes to all these beautiful projects we're going to be announcing. And then at the end, it says the economy will become the strongest in the G7. Not a chance. The government will announce the first set of national building projects in the coming weeks to end. The first set. Are we going to hear one or two? Or will it just be 3? Because what we need is 100 projects of national interest without a MPO office, without the First Nations, and without this Don Farrell guy. What we need is approved. Approved, 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 approved. Build. In the next 18 months, we have 3 brand new LNG ports. We have pipelines that are being built as we speak. We need to blow up our economy and cut taxes across the board. This Liberal government is going to strangle every single ounce of prosperity out of this country. Guaranteed. Now that we know Mark Carney is absolutely useless and nothing is going to change in this country, let's understand why Donald Trump wanted Mark Carney and the Liberals to win the election, because it's all about money and oil and gas. Let's go. But first, let's take a look at Crown Royal.
For generations, the iconic Canadian whiskey brand Crown Royal has been bottled here at this facility in Amherstburg. But owner company Diageo has announced that will come to an end in the new year. This site will cease operations in February 2026, and around 160 employees will be out of their jobs. Those workers are represented by Unifor Local 200. The local's president, John Dignolo, says the union had no warning about the announcement.
There was no indications, no signs. They read off a letter to me saying it was a business decision, and that was it. It's absolutely devastating and shocking at the same time. And I can guarantee you there was a lot of tears coming out of that plant, because it's been a benchmark in Amherstburg.
In its announcement, Diageo says Crown Royal will continue to be mashed, distilled, and aged in Canada. The company is also maintaining its distillation and bottling facilities in Gimli, Manitoba, and Valleyfield, Quebec. But the company says the closure of the Amherstburg site is part of a decision to shift its packaging operations closer to U.S. consumers. Diageo's statement doesn't mention tariffs or the trade war, but Dignolo says he suspects Diageo wants to relocate more work to its facilities in Illinois.
They're great paying jobs, all governments, municipal governments. We need to sit down and collectively get together and say what it'll take to make sure that these plants don't leave.
Dan Gemis, president of the Amherstburg Chamber of Commerce, says the plant's closure will have an impact on the entire Amherstburg business community. More people out of work means less spending to support the local economy.
From those employees' standpoint, from their families, now they're going to be focused on saving money between now and February, and so there's no doubt that all the small businesses in town will feel the effect. It has a major effect on all businesses locally, and not just here in Amherstburg, but across Windsor-Essex County.
The union says it intends to fight the closure decision, but there hasn't been an opportunity for discussion with the company. Diageo has owned Crown Royal since 2000. The brand was created by Seagram in 1939. Dawson Chen, CBC News, Amherstburg.
Company after company to the United States. Companies from Canada are flooding into the United States. That's going to lead well to why Donald Trump wanted a liberal-led government. But first, this is another one. Back in May, Sunoco signs a deal to buy Parkland in agreement valued at $9.1 billion. The Canadian fuel retailer has been involved in a bitter dispute with its major shareholders. They moved to the United States and said, oh, we're going to leave our Calgary headquarters. Don't you worry. But it doesn't matter. The shift of control goes down south. This is happening all over the place. Since Mark Carney showed up, our country is getting gutted. We're going to start off with this explosive interview with Vashi Capello and the CEO of TMX. Honestly, it's very revealing. We want to hear this interview. I haven't seen other content creators publish about this video. It's important.
Where does most of the oil that goes out of here, where does most of it go? Because the big pitch for this was, of course, and particularly against the backdrop now of our trade war with the U.S. diversifying our markets. To what extent does TMX do that?
Yeah, so initially when we started up, it was about 50-50 US, Asia. And since that time, it's evolved more heavily to Asia. So if you look at the numbers back from the beginning of time when we started up, it's about just shy of 60% now go to Asia. And the lion's share of that is China, but some go to Korea. Ships go to Korea, Japan, Singapore, India, Brunei. And so, yeah, we've seen a variety of different markets, and there today is still a lot of interest from Asian buyers in Canadian oil.
And guess what? If we had higher capacity, then we'd be able to sell even more to Asia. They're buying everything up. The reason that we have 40% going down to the United States is we've already guaranteed that oil to them. Everything above that is getting shipped to Asia. We need to increase the capacity of this pipeline.
So that's where I wanted to ask you about when you talk about optimization. First of all, in layman's terms, I understand it as you want to increase the capacity that TMX has and the amount of oil that we're able to get out of here, that you're able to get out of here, but not through additional pipelines or anything, but through like making things work better. Is that a good way to put it?
That's a good way to put it. There's a little bit of mechanical stuff we have to do to the system. Primarily, it would be more horsepower. So the pipeline that we built hydraulically can move pretty close to 800,000 barrels a day. The new pipeline by itself, and the old one moved about 340, 350. So we can take our existing system as it's now built. Capacity is 890. We could move that up to more than 1.1 to almost 1.2 million barrels a day, something in that range, with more horsepower on the existing system. And so that involves pumps, motors in existing locations, maybe some new locations, and then power infrastructure to supply that, and maybe a little bit of pipe, TBD. So we're working through that now, but that's a very doable, very cost-effective project for us to increase capacity on the pipeline.
And I did an analysis on that exact statement. It would cost between $3 and $4 billion, and it will take 5 years to optimize this pipeline. We don't have a second to spare. It needs to be immediately approved. It's a no-brainer. If we were able to get that much capacity increase, like near 400,000 barrels per day, that's per day. The amount of money that would generate within 5 years, that additional expense would be paid for. Yeah. And the demand is there for the Canadian oil. So while we're building this for the next 5 years, we could be building other pipelines in the northern BC to get it to the coast. with our natural gas.
Would you argue it's a project that would be in the national interest?
I think it is. It's very much in Canada's national interest, I think,
Of course.
to do that project. But
You
even
know
with,
why I'm asking, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the big term that's out there right now. And everyone's wondering, in the conventional energy space, does that mean another pipeline, which is something some provinces want and others, like the one we're in, have expressed some reservations about?
Yeah.
Does it mean more LNG? Does it, all of those questions are circulating. In your view, what you're talking about, is that something that would fit into that category?
I think you would look at, my personal belief, okay, is that you look at the optimization of your existing pipelines as the first thing you do, because it's the easiest thing to do.
No. See, he's got it all wrong, because we should be optimizing it anyway and also looking at other pipelines. But if you have to optimize it first before we look at other things, and it takes 5 years to optimize, the math ain't mathin'.
It's much harder to build another one of the, another TMX somewhere. And for that reason, optimize the kit that you have, which you can do in steps over time, and then add capacity as it's needed. And then you have time to evaluate the bigger issue, which
No, we don't have a second. We don't have a minute. It's over for Canada if we do not rapidly build.
is, do you need another pipeline somewhere?
Do you have a gut feeling on that issue? You're someone beyond your experience here. You've been in the industry for
Long time.
for decades.
Mhm.
It's a very alive conversation right now, particularly another pipeline this way, because of exactly the case you've made for TMX, that it's diversified our markets at a time where we no longer believe we can rely on the U.S. as a destination for most of our exports. Do you think that there is, do you think another one is feasible?
I do, but you have to have the supply to underpin the next pipeline.
Oh, now there you go. You need the supply. How is that possible under a liberal-led government? It's not. We have the anti-oil taker ban. We have an emissions cap. We have a green net zero government. There's no chance that we could ever have an increase in capacity under this government. That's why there's no additional pipelines or project of national interest for pipelines, because it's not net zero. Let's be real.
And so that's a lot of things have to line up for that to happen. And that has to really come first, like policy changes. There has to be a desire on the part of the private sector to actually invest in more production. And so
no private sector is going to be coming to Canada with a liberal socialist net zero government.
the environment has to be right for that. That's really kind of the starting point in my mind, is there's a will, and capital wants to be deployed to Canada. There was a time earlier in my career where like Canada was the place money wanted to go, because they could see the resource. It was a sure production. There's no finding costs. It was this long rectangle of production. So it's very appealing to an investor to look at Canada. And so getting that money back and interested in the country is really important.
What's changed? What's changed from before to now? I could only think of one thing. We have an Ottawa problem. We have a liberal government problem. They're in the way. We need them to move out of the way and allow our country to flourish. They're in the way. Without the liberal government, we would have an abundant amount of investment in our country. How do I know that? It's because we have some of the richest land on Earth, the second largest landmass on planet Earth. We have all of the resources the world wants, as they describe. We have the oil that every country wishes they actually had. We have the second largest forest on planet Earth. We have some of the smartest people in the world. Yet we have the worst managed country on planet Earth. That's right. And the problem is that they are more focused on net zero, where everybody else in the world is rapidly moving away from net zero because it's bankrupting their countries. But in Canada, full steam ahead.
So that's, to me, is where it's got to start. And then you can start talking about, I need another pipeline.
So when you talk about policy changes, are you referencing, the private sector has highlighted, for example, emissions cap, C69? Like, do you have opposition to those policies?
I'm probably not in the best position to comment on that. I think it's in the industry on the production side has outlined what they think is necessary to bring capital back. And I think, the government has got some great people in it, starting at the prime minister level, that really understand capital markets and what brings money, makes money want to invest in the country. And so I think we're in good hands. They'll figure it out.
Oh, okay. First of all, this guy is trying to save his job. Why? Because his boss is Mark Carney and the Liberals. Because the Mark Carney and Liberals own TMX. It's government owned. So yeah, none of the things he just said, it was just to save his job. And when he says capital markets and they know exactly what they're doing, I just told you what the problem is the Liberal government's in the way. Without them, there would be a flood of money coming into this country because we have what the world wants and needs.
Do you think that, let's say, for example, there was interest from a Canadian perspective in developing another pipeline because of the success of this one? Do you think it has to come from the private sector? And I ask because there's sort of a model here that we've never experienced in this country, right? Yes, one that was divisive, but now one that, you're defending, and so are different members of all levels of government.
Yeah.
Is this something, for example, that TMX could take on in the future as another project of national?
I think the prime minister has been really clear about that. If there's another pipeline to be built, they want private money to do it. And what I will say on occasion is, like, Trans Mountain is here if we're needed, but like I think his objective of attracting capital back to the country is the right path.
Not one company will come to Canada with all the restrictions that we have. Also, they won't want to compete with a federally run pipeline. Why? Because if they're federally run, they want to increase the value of that pipeline. They're going to squash everything. That means there's no pipeline to the north, and we know exactly why. It's because they don't want to compete with TMX.
And find private capital to do that next thing.
If I ask it in a different way, and that's a very fair point, is it possible? Like, do you have the capacity as a company right now to do something like would you rule it out?
Would I rule it out? It's pretty hard for us to do it. Like, we don't have the authority to do that kind of thing today. Could we do it?
Why does they not have the authority? It's because of all the regulations.
With the right, we have to have support from the government to do that. Right now, I think we have very strong support for us. Optimize what you have, and so that's what we're working on. And that would be like, as I came into the role, that was my personal desire, was let's optimize what we have, because it'll be very cost effective. It'll improve the competitive position of the company. It'll enhance the value to the owner if the owner ever decides it wants to sell.
And do you think that they will decide to sell later rather than sooner? Do you think they'll take your advice?
I think I hope they're in no hurry, and there's reasons for that. Like, think about it. If you tell somebody, I've got to sell my house.
This guy wants to keep his job. That's the only reason he's saying this.
Right? What's going to happen to the value of your home? So it's the same. It's by analogy, it's the same thing. The owner should be in no hurry to move the system. It should pick its point in time when it makes the most sense for it to do so.
Do you think they are, though? The question isn't whether you want it.
Here's again, I think the leadership in government, they understand capital markets, they understand attracting capital, and they understand timing, I think, extraordinarily well. So I'm not worried. They'll make the right decision.
No, they don't understand anything. And it's very clear of that. We need our federal government to sell this thing immediately, because as long as they're in the oil and pipeline business, they're going to squash all competition like a cartel. Meaning, if they get out and create competition, allow the development of these pipelines by reducing the regulations and just removing them altogether, until then, we're not going to get any of this energy superpower that we're looking for. And I wonder why, because we are selling our oil to the United States at a discount because we're unable to sell our oil to the world. I'm sure Donald Trump was furious when we did TMX because he knew that we would be able to sell oil to the world, and that would actually push up the value of the Canadian Classic. That's it for today's report. This is a two-part series. This was part one. I'm going to come out with part two. And I'm going to disclose why Donald Trump wanted Mark Carney to become Prime Minister of Canada, led by a Liberal-led government. It's because of our oil and gas industry, and I'm going to show you why. Also, Pierre Poilievre is on fire right now. Pierre Poilievre 2.0. I can't wait to deliver you part 2 of this series. I'll see you on part 2 of this report.